Hi everyone, it's Hector from CochiseCountyVoice. At my kitchen table today, I have a special guest. He is running for a city council seat in Benson, so I'll let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself and why he's decided to run for office. I'll tell you something, he's already had the job, so let's hear it.
All right, thank you, Hector. You know, it's easy to walk in here and get offered a glass of lemonade to make it feel at home. So, you know, it's a great opportunity. So thank you for allowing me into your home first and foremost.
You're welcome.
A little bit about me is, again, my name is Mark Romero. I am a sitting council member for the Benson City. I've been in the position since January of 2025. I was a replacement for Seth Judd. And that's more of what my political environment is, but a little bit about myself. 45-year-old, been in Benson since 2017. I came here for a job in Wilcox. I work for a federal agency in Wilcox, and I found that Benson was a great place to raise a family. I had a daughter when I was raising her, so she got to really see the school systems there, and you know, it's one of the better school systems, and it's easier to do it as they are very committed to families and everything else. Since then, a little bit about myself prior to that was I'm a combat veteran, a decorated veteran. I did that throughout my 20s, and then I was a contractor for many years prior to that. I was working all over the world, from Philippines, Thailand, Dubai, with the government, and then, you know, I needed to come back and really be a father to my kids, and that was one of the biggest reasons. You know, first and foremost, I also want to thank God for putting me in the position He did. You know, my faith is very important to me. I'm a Christian. I go to church at the Pantano Church just behind Love's. Again, that's something that's very personal and dear to me. I started down that trek, especially this last year. I've had a few health scares throughout my life, but for the most part, I'm doing well. And then coming out here has changed my view on things about serving. You know, throughout my career, I've served quite a bit, not only now as a city councilman, but you know, I work for a federal agency. I also served as a veteran and as a father, but also I am working inside the community as the Fraternal Order of Eagles president. You know, that's a step that it's not just serving the community as a city councilman, but being part of these organizations. You know, these have a lot of history to them, and being part of that, allowing me to be on the board to serve the community even better, helps. I also have worked with the Combat Veteran Motorcycle Association that I serve on the board with them as well, and we put on an event every year in Tombstone with the American Legion down there, and annually we have done almost $35,000. And 100% of all that money goes right back to the community, to veterans in need and everything else. And I've been doing that for several years, so I can say, you know, personally, I've helped bring in almost safely to say, over $100,000 of funds for veterans in need. And if there is veterans in need, hey, get in touch with me. You know, we help. We laid almost 300 yards of cement last year. So it's not just monetarily. We get out and help the community build houses, roofs, yards of concrete, and you can understand that's a lot of work. So also we pay mortgages. We've paid for people to fill up their fridge and everything else. So that's just a little bit of who I am as a person.
I appreciate it. I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, it is a good life of service, and you know, and I remember when you were elected. And you were asked actually to run. You know, the community was very supportive of you to take that, you know, that step to replace Mr. Judd, as you said, Councilman Judd at the time, and and you spoke of that when you were first elected, being thankful, and of course how folks knew your name and they knew you about time, so you were not you were not a surprise name. People knew already a little bit of what they were getting, right. And so there was a little bit of encouragement, I would say, from the community. Right. I saw it and I heard it and felt it when you were elected, and it's not, unfortunately, it was not a long tenure. It was not the full.
Well, that was just the beginning, correct?
Yeah, and so that was the beginning for you, and so it is but it is a big step, yet again to get into. This is a very public office.
Absolutely.
And it's been a year where I don't want to say controversies, but it's been a very hot year for.
Well, there's a lot more stress, right?
Yeah, and of course everything has been more stressful. But tell me a little bit about that. Since being elected, tell me about how that's gone for you, and a little bit about the things that you feel have gone pretty well for the city, just in general. And then we'll get into sort of the individual topics. But like I say, you're a known entity. You've had that job, so I don't want to just sit there and go over that same intro. I think people should already know you, hopefully. So tell me a little bit about it since being elected. What that was like to first get in there, and what the group makeup was like, and how you felt as far as how the city did during that time.
Well, to first go back and just a little bit before, I was with planning and zoning, and I think that's how I started getting into politics.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of where I started, right?
Yeah, it's important.
And one of it was I started getting mentored by some of the city council. One thing I've tried to do is, even with these new seating council members, I go and at least talk to them, have a dinner with them, and say, hey, who are you? How are we? Who am I? And how can we work together? But I did that, and one of the mentors that I had was Lupe Diaz. Prior to him stepping down and moving to a different position for the state of Arizona. But Tony King also asked me, prior to me getting on planning and zoning, I first applied to fill in for a position of city council, but not having any experience, he said, well, let's start here. So, Tony King kind of started pushing me down that path. And again, it's a great opportunity to start, because you don't know exactly this big pile of business that we call the city, and then going into it. So that's how I started. This year has been definitely controversial, from different topics of water waste and golf course and finances and everything else, and we as the city had to endure. Now I've took a few months off last year, without getting into too much details. There was a medical issue that happened to me, and I'll talk to anyone offline about that, but I ended up in the hospital for most of June and July. And to praise God that I'm still here. Be honest with you, they didn't expect me to make it.
Oh man.
So it's my 6th time or 5th time dying, but but I'm still here, and I'm feeling stronger than ever. Oh yeah, so I've been blown up in the Middle East as a soldier, and then
well, I hope you're part cat or something. Get some
that's what they call me. I'm called the cat now because of that. So.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so I got to be a part of that and see what the city was going through, and one of the structures that we had was the difference between planning and zoning and the city council, and I think that was one of the biggest hindrance that we had for the ADI. And that let's call a spade a spade. That was the big hoopla of the last year. Was one of the big ones. But people started going to more city council meetings and everything else, but ultimately Benson is a wonderful place to raise families. It is a wonderful place to live. you know, we're so close to Tucson and Sierra Vista that we can go get a little bit of the city, but then still enjoy our small town living. You know, our lower crime rates, our, you know, 3 stoplights and, you know, people that know your name and everything else. I lived here for the first 3 years, didn't know it, nobody knew me. Oh yeah, you're that guy in that corner house over there. So I'm like, well, apparently they know me.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of place it is, so I'm glad you found it. All right, let's take a little break. I appreciate it.